The great hall of Kepler Prime was silent. Jake Harrison sat at the small table marked with Earth's symbol. Around him, representatives from dozens of alien species filled the massive chamber. Their seats rose up like steps in an ancient theater. At the center of it all stood the Draconian podium. Supreme Commander Vextar stepped forward. His scales caught the light as he moved. Each scale was as big as a human hand and darker than space itself. His eyes glowed red in the dim chamber. When he spoke, his voice echoed off the walls like thunder. "Members of the Galactic Council," Vextar began. His words dripped with pride. "Today marks the end of a joke that has gone on too long." Jake kept his face calm. He had been Earth's ambassador for 3 years now. In that time, he had learned to hide his feelings well. The aliens could not read human expressions anyway. To them, all humans looked the same. Vextar raised one massive claw. A hologram appeared above his head. It showed a small blue planet floating in black space. Earth looked tiny and alone. "This pathetic world has somehow convinced itself it belongs among civilized species," Vextar continued. "For too long, we have allowed these primitive apes to sit at our table. We have listened to their foolish words about peace and cooperation." Laughter filled the chamber. The Zilithians made high-pitched sounds that hurt human ears. The Corvin delegates clicked their mandibles together. Even the usually quiet hegemony representatives allowed themselves small chuckles. Jake did not move. He kept his hands folded on the table in front of him. His wedding ring caught a small beam of light. He thought about his wife Sarah back on Earth. She would be sleeping now. It was night in their time zone. In the past year, the Draconian Empire has brought order to 12 star systems, Vextar announced. The hologram changed to show a map of local space. Red markers showed the conquered worlds. Each system now enjoys the benefits of proper leadership. No more chaos, no more weakness. The aliens nodded their approval. The Corvin representative, a bug-like creature named Thyses, spoke up. "The Empire brings stability," he said in his clicking voice. Something these humans could never understand. More laughter. Jake remembered his first day in this chamber. Back then, the mockery had stung. Now it felt like background noise. He had learned that aliens were much like humans in some ways. They laughed at what they did not understand. They feared what they could not control. Vextar gestured again. The hologram now showed massive ships, hundreds of them, then thousands. Each ship was the size of a city. Their hulls gleamed with weapons and armor. "Behold the Draconian fleet," Vextar roared. 3,000 vessels of war, each one capable of destroying a planet. Together, they are unstoppable. The chamber fell silent. Even the allies of the Draconians seemed impressed by the display. Jake had to admit it was quite a sight. He had seen the intelligence reports, but seeing the ships like this made their size real. "This fleet now moves toward the Sol system," Vextar continued. "In 72 hours, it will arrive at Earth. The humans will then face a simple choice. The Draconian commander turned to look directly at Jake. His red eyes seemed to burn in the dim light. Surrender completely or be destroyed completely. There is no third option. Jake felt a small vibration in his pocket. His communication device was receiving a message. He did not check it yet. That would seem rude, and right now he needed to appear calm. Vextar was still talking. "The humans have no real military. Their ships are pieces of scrap metal held together with hope. Their weapons are toys compared to ours. They have never won a real war against anyone who could fight back." This brought more laughter from the crowd. The Zilithian delegate stood up. "Perhaps we should take bets," she said in her musical voice. "How long will Earth last? I say 6 hours at most." 4 hours, called out a Corvin voice. 2 hours, added someone else. Jake finally checked his message. It was from Admiral Lisa Chun aboard the ship New Horizon. The ship was in orbit around Kepler Prime right now. The message was short. Protocol 7 is active. Jake almost smiled. Almost. Instead, he kept the same calm expression he had worn all day. Vexstar raised his claws for silence. Enough, he rumbled. Ambassador Harrison, you have heard our terms. What does Earth say to this generous offer? Jake stood up slowly. The chamber went quiet again. All eyes turned to him. He was the smallest being in the room. His simple blue suit looked plain next to the elaborate costumes of the other delegates. But he did not feel small. Supreme Commander, Jake said in a clear voice, Earth appreciates the time you have given us to consider your offer. More alien laughter. They thought he was already giving up. However, Jake continued, such an important decision requires consultation with our government. I request additional time to present your terms to Earth's leadership. Vexstar's eyes narrowed. How much time do you need to say, we surrender, human? 48 hours should be sufficient, Jake replied. The Draconian commander threw back his head and laughed. It was a sound like breaking glass and grinding metal. 48 hours to delay the inevitable? Very well. I am feeling generous. Today, take your time, little human. Beg your leaders to save you. In the end, you will still kneel before the Empire. Jake bowed slightly. Thank you for your patience, Supreme Commander. Earth will give you our answer in 2 days. As Jake gathered his papers, he heard the aliens talking among themselves. They were already discussing how to divide Earth's resources. After the humans were gone, some wanted the water. Others wanted the mineral deposits. A few seemed interested in keeping some humans as pets or servants. Jake walked toward the exit. His footsteps echoed in the huge chamber. Behind him, Vexstar was already talking about his next conquest. The Draconian Empire would not stop with Earth. There were always more worlds to take Dot at the door. Jake paused. He turned back to look at the assembled aliens one more time. They were so confident, so sure of their superiority. They had no idea what was coming. Jake smiled then. Just a small smile that no one else could see. Dot in 48 hours. Everything would change. 3 days passed quickly. All across the galaxy, news stations prepared for the show. Camera ships positioned themselves at safe distances from Earth's solar system. Reporters spoke in excited voices about the coming battle. It would not really be a battle, they said. It would be an execution. The Zilithian News Network had their best team covering the story. In just hours, we expect to witness the complete destruction of the human homeworld, announced their lead reporter. Our military experts predict Earth will fall within minutes of the first attack. Betting pools opened on every civilized world. The odds were not about whether Earth would lose. Everyone knew that would happen. The bets were about how long it would take. Most aliens put their money on less than 1 hour. Admiral Chris Martinez stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Earth. Vessel Defender. Through the main window, he could see the other ships of Earth's defense fleet. 39 other vessels floated in formation around him. They looked small and simple compared to what was coming. Admiral, called out Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her station. Long-range sensors are picking up movement at the edge of the system. Chris nodded. Here they come. All ships prepare for contact. The space around Earth's outer planets began to shimmer. Reality twisted and bent as massive ships pushed through from hyperspace. One by one, the Draconian fleet appeared. Each ship was a monster of metal and weapons. They blotted out the stars as they took their positions. 3,000 ships. Chris had known the number from the intelligence reports, but seeing them all together took his breath away. The smallest Draconian vessel was 3 times larger than his flagship. The largest were floating cities that could house millions. "Sir," Amy reported, "I'm reading weapon signatures on all enemy ships. They're already charging their main guns." "Steady," Chris replied. "Wait for orders." On Kepler Prime, Jake Harrison watched the same scene on a massive display screen. The Galactic Council had gathered to witness Earth's final moments. Most of the alien delegates seemed excited. A few looked almost sad, but not many. Supreme Commander Vexstar stood at the center of the chamber. His image was being broadcast live from his command ship. Behind him, Draconian officers worked at control stations that looked like works of art compared to human technology. "Citizens of the galaxy," Vexstar announced, "today you will see the price of defying the Empire. Watch as we end the human experiment. Forever." The camera feeds showed both fleets clearly now. The contrast was shocking. The Draconian ships gleamed with smooth armor and elegant weapon arrays. They moved in perfect formation, like dancers in space. Energy shields flickered around, their hulls in beautiful patterns of light. Earth's ships looked like they had been built in someone's garage. Their hulls were rough metal welded together in simple shapes. Weapon ports looked like they had been cut with basic tools. No shields protected them. They seemed to barely hold together as they drifted through space. "Look at those pathetic humans," laughed the Corvin delegate. "Their ships are already falling apart, and the fight has not even started." "I almost feel sorry for them," added a hegemony representative. "They have no idea what is about to happen." On his command ship, Vexstar opened a communication channel to the human fleet. His face appeared on screens throughout both armadas and across the galaxy. "Admiral Martinez," Vexstar said. His voice carried the confidence of someone who had never lost a battle. "I offer you one final chance. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. Resist, and we will make sure you suffer." Chris appeared on the return channel. He looked calm in his simple blue uniform. No fancy decorations or colorful ribbons decorated his chest. Just a small name tag and Earth's flag on his shoulder. "Commander." "Vexstar," Chris replied. "Earth's answer has not changed. We will not surrender." The aliens watching gasped. Even now, facing certain death, the humans refused to give up. It seemed impossible. No species could be that stupid, could they? Vexstar's eyes glowed brighter with anger. "Then you have chosen extinction. Do not expect mercy for your foolishness." "We do not expect mercy," Chris said quietly. "We never have." The channel closed. Across the galaxy, beings held their breath. The moment had finally come. Vexstar turned to his weapons officer. "Begin the attack. Target their command ship first. I want Admiral Martinez to watch his fleet die before we finish him." "Yes, Supreme Commander," the officer replied. His claws moved across his control panel. "All ships report ready to fire." "Fire when ready," Vexstar commanded. But before the Draconian weapons could charge fully, Chris gave his own order. His voice was calm and steady as he spoke into his communicator. "All ships, this is Admiral Martinez. Begin Phase 1. The human ships did not move to attack. They did not raise shields or turn to run. They simply stopped where they were. 40 ships floating motionless in space, waiting. What are they doing? Asked the Zalithian reporter. Why are they not fighting back? On Kepler Prime, Jake watched with the same calm expression he had worn for 3 days. Several alien delegates turned to stare at him. "Ambassador Harrison," called out the Corvin representative, "your ships appear to be malfunctioning. They are not even trying to defend themselves." Jake smiled slightly. "They are doing exactly what they are supposed to do." The Draconian fleet continued its advance. Their weapons were almost ready to fire. Victory seemed certain. The galaxy watched and waited for the final moment, but something was wrong. The camera operators noticed it first. The Draconian ships were still moving forward, but no more communications came from them. The command channel had gone silent. Vextar's image flickered and disappeared from the screens. His officers stopped working at their stations. One by one, the beautiful Draconian ships began to drift. "What is happening?" demanded the Zilithian delegate. "Why have they stopped talking?" Jake turned to face the assembled aliens. His calm smile had grown wider. "Phase 1 is complete," he said simply. In space, 3,000 Draconian warships floated silent and dark. Their weapons powered down. Their engines went cold. And somewhere in that vast fleet, no one answered when the galaxy tried to call. The silence stretched across space like a disease. Minutes passed, then an hour. The Draconian fleet continued moving in perfect formation toward Earth. Their engines still glowed. Their hulls still gleamed in the starlight. But no voices came. From inside the ships, Captain Amy Rodriguez stared at her sensor display aboard the Earth vessel Liberty. The readings made no sense. She checked them again, then a third time. The numbers did not change. "Admiral Martinez," she called on the communication channel. "Sir, I need to report something strange." Chris Martinez appeared on her screen. Behind him, his bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. They seemed calm, as if nothing unusual had happened. "Go ahead, Captain Rodriguez," Chris said. "Sir, all Draconian ships are showing normal external readings. Engines active, hull integrity intact, weapons systems operational. But double." Amy paused. She had never seen anything like this before. "Sir, I am reading 0 life signs from the entire fleet." The words hung in space between them. 0 life signs. 3,000 ships. Millions of crew members. All gone. "Confirmed, Captain," Chris replied. "Continue monitoring and report any changes." The channel closed. Amy stared at her screens. How could this be possible? The ships looked perfectly normal. From the outside, nothing had attacked them. No weapons had been fired. No explosions had occurred. The crews had simply stopped living. On Kepler Prime, panic was spreading through the Galactic Council chamber. The alien delegates had heard Amy's report. There, universal translators made sure everyone understood the impossible words. 0 life signs? Demanded the Zilithian representative. Her musical voice had turned sharp with fear. That cannot be correct. Run the scans again. Technical teams from a dozen species worked frantically at their equipment. They all reached the same conclusion. The Draconian ships were flying tombs. Commander Thizes of the Corvin Syndicate stood up on his 6 legs. His mandibles clicked rapidly. As he spoke, what weapon could do this? How do you kill crews without damaging ships? All eyes turned to Jake Harrison. He sat quietly at his small table, watching the chaos around him with the same calm expression he had worn for days. "Ambassador Harrison," called out the hegemony delegate, "your species must answer for this. What did you do to the Draconian fleet?" Jake stood slowly. The chamber fell silent as he prepared to speak. Even the news cameras focused on him. Across the galaxy, billions of beings waited for his words. Earth warned the Draconian Empire to reconsider their position, Jake said in a quiet voice. They chose to ignore that warning. The consequences of their choice are not our responsibility. That is not an answer, shouted the Zilithian delegate. Tell us what weapon you used. We used no weapon, Jake replied. The chamber erupted in. Angry voices. Delegates demanded explanations. Some called for Earth to be arrested for war crimes. Others wanted the human fleet to be destroyed immediately before they could kill anyone else. Through it all, Jake remained calm. He had learned long ago that fear made people say foolish things. Right now, the galaxy was very afraid. The news. Reports were already spreading panic across civilized space. The Zilithian news network showed the same images over and over. Thousands of massive warships drifting silently through space. No distress calls, no emergency signals. Just silence. "Ladies and gentlemen," announced the lead reporter, "we are witnessing something that should be impossible. The most powerful military force in the galaxy has been neutralized without a single shot being fired. The implications are terrifying." Back in the Sol system, Admiral Martinez received reports from his other captains. Every human ship reported the same thing. The Draconian fleet was completely dead, but their vessels remained intact. Lieutenant Rodriguez worked at her station, trying to understand what had happened. Her sensors could detect the smallest signs of life from enormous distances. They could find a single bacteria on a dead moon. But the Draconian ships showed nothing, not even bacteria. Every living thing aboard those vessels had simply stopped existing. "Captain," called out her communications officer, "I am receiving strange readings from the enemy ships." "What kind of readings?" Amy asked. "Audio signals, ma'am? Very faint." "It sounds like ... double quotes." The young officer paused, looking confused. "It sounds like screaming, but the screams stopped days ago, like echoes of something that already happened." Amy felt a chill run down her spine. Echoes of screaming from empty ships. What could have terrified the Draconians so badly that their fear still bounced around inside their vessels? On Kepler Prime, emergency sessions began immediately. Representatives from major powers demanded answers. The Corvin Syndicate wanted to send investigation teams to examine the Draconian ships. The hegemony called for a quarantine of the entire Sol system until the mystery could be solved. Jake listened to their demands with growing amusement. These aliens thought they were so advanced. They believed their technology and weapons made them superior to humanity. But they had no idea what they were really dealing with. The Zilithian delegate approached Jake's table. Her scales shimmered with stress patterns that showed her fear. "Ambassador, please. You must tell us how this was done. If humans have developed some new weapon, the galaxy has a right to know." Jake looked up at her. For just a moment, his calm mask slipped. The alien delegate saw something in his eyes that made her step backward, something old and dangerous and not quite human. "You keep calling it a weapon," Jake said softly. "What if it was not a weapon at all? What if we simply removed something that was protecting them?" Before the Zilithian could ask what he meant, urgent alarms began sounding throughout the station. Emergency broadcasts flooded every screen in the chamber. The Draconian home fleet, responding to the silence from their attack force, had just arrived at the edge of the Sol system. 2,000 more ships, ready for war. They demanded to know what had happened to their missing vessels. Admiral Martinez's voice came through the speakers clearly. His response was simple and terrifying. "Unknown vessels, you are ordered to leave this system immediately. We will not warn you twice." The second Draconian fleet began moving toward Earth. Their commanders were angry and wanted revenge for their missing comrades. Smiled as he watched the new ships approach. Phase 1 had worked perfectly. Now it was time to see if the galaxy was ready for Phase 2. The second Draconian fleet stopped just outside weapon range. Their commander, Admiral Krextos, was Vextar's younger brother. He demanded answers about his missing ships. When Admiral Martinez warned him to leave, Krextos laughed with the same arrogance his brother had shown. But then something strange happened. As the second fleet moved closer to Earth, their crews began reporting disturbing sensations. Headaches, nightmares while awake, voices that whispered in empty corridors. Within 6 hours, Krextos ordered his ships to retreat to a safe distance. "We will return with reinforcements," he promised over the communication channels. "The Empire does not forget. But for now, The immediate threat was over. This gave the Galactic Council time to investigate what had happened to the First Fleet. The science vessel, Quantum Truth, arrived in the Sol system 3 days later. Dr. Ben Thompson, a human researcher who had been studying alien cultures on Kepler Prime, volunteered to join the investigation team. The alien scientists were not happy about this, but they needed all the help they could get. Dr. Thompson was a quiet man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had spent 10 years living among alien species, learning their ways and customs. The other researchers tolerated him because he asked good questions and never got in their way. The team approached one of the smaller Draconian ships first. The vessel was called the Night Hunter, and it had carried a crew of 500 soldiers. From the outside, everything looked normal. The hull showed no damage. The engines were still warm. Weapon systems remained powered and ready. Dr. Zixara, the Zilithian team leader, connected her ship to the Draconian airlock. Remember, she told the investigation team, we do not know what killed these crews. Stay alert for any signs of danger. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. The team stepped inside wearing full protective gear. Their scanners showed normal. Atmosphere, normal temperature, normal everything. Except for the complete absence of life. They found the first body in the corridor leading to the bridge. It was a Draconian soldier, still wearing his armor. His weapons remained in their holsters. He had simply fallen where he stood and never gotten back up. Dr. Thompson knelt beside the body. His medical scanner showed no signs of injury, no trace of poison, no evidence of disease. It looks like he just stopped living, Ben said quietly. That is impossible, replied Dr. Fix, the Corvin scientist. Nothing just stops living. There must be a cause. They found more bodies as they moved through the ship. Hundreds of them. All had died in the same mysterious way. Some were at their duty stations. Others were in their quarters or the mess hall. A few had been walking down corridors when death took them. The most disturbing discovery came when they reached the bridge. The ship's captain lay slumped over his command chair. His claws were extended, as if he had been trying to scratch at something that was not there. The expression on his face was one of pure terror. Look at this, called Dr. Zixara from the communications station. The ship's log recorded everything until the moment the crew died. She played the final recording. The captain's voice came through the speakers, but it sounded different from normal Draconian speech. It was filled with fear and confusion. Personal. Log, Captain Vorth recording. Something is wrong with my crew. They keep seeing things that are not there. Faces in the walls, voices calling their names. Some of them are crying like younglings. Others stare at empty spaces and whisper apologies to people who are not there. The recording continued. I can feel it too now. The thing that watches us. It knows everything we have done. Every world we burned. Every city we destroyed. Every innocent we killed. It shows us their faces. It makes us remember. Then came sounds of chaos, screaming, running footsteps. And underneath it all, something else. A presence that seemed to press against the microphone like a living shadow. The captain's final words were barely a whisper. It's not killing us. It's making us kill ourselves. The guilt, the shame, ... I cannot. I cannot. The recording ended. The investigation team stood in silent horror. Dr. Fix's mandibles clicked nervously. What could make an entire crew experience shared hallucinations? They were not hallucinations, Dr. Thompson said quietly. The aliens turned to stare at him. They were memories. Real memories of real victims. How can you know that? Demanded Dr. Zixara. Ben looked at the dead captain with sad eyes. Because I recognize the symptoms. This is what happens when someone is forced to truly see the consequences of their actions. when they can no longer hide from the truth of what they have done. Dr. Thix moved closer to Ben. You speak as if you have seen this before. In a way. I have, Ben replied. Humans call it conscience. The ability to feel guilt and shame for our wrong actions. It is supposed to prevent us from doing evil things. But when that feeling becomes too strong, too focused, he trailed off, looking around the bridge at all the dead Draconians. Are you saying, Dr. Zixara asked slowly, that the human fleet somehow weaponized guilt? Ben shook his head. Not weaponized. More like ... unleashed. You see, every thinking species has the capacity for conscience. But most learn to suppress it when convenient. The Draconians were very good at ignoring their guilt about the worlds they conquered. The alien scientists exchanged worried glances. This human was saying something that sounded impossible. But what if, Ben continued, something forced them to stop suppressing those feelings? What if every terrible thing they had ever done suddenly became real to them again? What if they could see and hear every victim they had ever harmed? Dr. Thix backed away from Ben. That would require some kind of psychic ability. Humans do not have psychic powers. Ben looked at him with those kind, sad eyes. Dr. Thix, may I ask you a question? In all your studies of human behavior, have you ever wondered why we are the only species that shows genuine remorse for our mistakes? Why we are the only ones who build monuments to our victims instead of our victories? The Corvin scientist had no answer. We should examine more ships, Dr. Zixara said, trying to change the subject. But her voice shook as she spoke. They visited 5 more vessels. The pattern was always the same. Crews dead without injury, their faces showing expressions of absolute terror and shame. Ship logs telling stories of guilt and regret overwhelming. Trained soldiers until they could no longer bear to live. On the 6th ship, they found something that made even Dr. Thompson pause. Scratched into the metal wall of the captain's quarters were words in the Draconian language. The message was simple but chilling. They know what we did. They remember everything. The humans remember everything. Dr. Zixara read the words aloud, then turned to Ben. Dr. Thompson, what exactly are humans? Ben was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. We are the species that remembers, Dr. Zixara. We remember every kindness and every cruelty. We remember those who help us and those who harm us. And sometimes, when we are threatened with extinction, we share those memories with others. The investigation team returned to their ship in silence. None of them spoke during the journey back. To Kepler Prime, they had found their answers, but those answers raised questions that were far more terrifying than the original mystery. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began at dawn on Kepler Prime. Every major species had sent their highest representatives. The chamber was packed with beings who had traveled across the galaxy to hear the truth about what happened. To the Draconian fleet, Jake Harrison sat at his small table as always. But today, he was not alone. Admiral Chris Martinez had arrived from the Sol System. Captain Amy Rodriguez stood beside him. And next to them was a woman the aliens had never seen before. Her name was Susan Walker, and she wore the simple uniform of Earth's scientific corps. She carried a small device that looked like a briefcase, and she set it carefully on the table. In front of her, Supreme Commander Vikstar's brother, Krextos, had also come to Kepler Prime. His face showed the grief and rage of someone who had lost family. When he spoke, his voice shook with emotion. The humans must answer for what they did to my brother's fleet, he demanded. 5 million Draconian souls are dead. We demand justice. The chamber erupted in agreement. Delegates from dozens of species called for Earth to be punished. Some wanted humanity destroyed completely. Others suggested that humans should be locked away on their home planet Forever. Jake stood up slowly. The noise died down as all eyes focused on him. He looked around the chamber at all the frightened, angry faces staring back at him. "You want the truth," Jake said in his calm voice. "Very well. But I warn you now that the truth will change everything. You think you know about my species." He gestured to Susan Walker. She opened her briefcase and pulled out a small metal cylinder. It was about the size of a water bottle, but it hummed with quiet energy. "This," Susan said, "is what we call a morality engine. Every human ship carries dozens of them. Every human settlement has hundreds. There are millions of these devices on Earth itself." The alien delegates leaned forward to get a better look. The device seemed ordinary enough. Just a simple metal tube with some blinking lights. "What does it do?" asked Dr. Zix Ara, who had returned from investigating the dead Draconian ships. Susan looked at Jake. He nodded for her to continue. "It suppresses certain natural abilities that humans are born with," Susan explained. "For thousands of years, we have used these devices to control our own nature, to make ourselves safer for others to be around." "What abilities?" demanded the Corvin representative. Jake stepped forward. "We are psychic predators," he said simply. The chamber fell silent. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. "Impossible," whispered the hegemony delegate. "Humans show no psychic abilities. Our tests prove this." "Your tests only work when we allow them to work," Jake replied. "Every human child learns to hide their abilities before they can walk. We have been doing this for so long that most of us forget we have these powers at all." Admiral Martinez spoke for the first time. "Every species develops along different evolutionary paths. Some become physically strong. Others become technologically advanced. Humans became hunters of minds." Susan activated a control on her device. The morality engine's humming grew louder. "These machines create a field that dampens psychic activity," she explained. "They make it harder for humans to access their natural abilities. We invented them because we wanted to live in peace with other species." "You are saying," the Zilithian delegate said slowly, "that humans have been deliberately making themselves weaker?" "Not weaker," Jake corrected. "Safer. Our ancestors learned that unlimited psychic ability led to terrible cruelty. So we chose to limit ourselves. We built a civilization based on controlling our own power instead of using it." Dr. Thompson, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. "This explains what happened to the Draconian crews. When faced with extinction, the human fleet temporarily shut down their morality engines." The alien delegates stared at him in horror. "For a few hours," Dr. Thompson continued, 40 human crews became what their species used to be, perfect psychic hunters. The Draconian minds, focused on conquest and cruelty, became easy prey." Susan held up her device. "The moment Phase 1 was complete, we reactivated our suppression fields. The humans returned to normal. But the damage to the Draconian fleet was already done." Crexto stood up, his massive frame shaking with rage and fear. "You are saying your people are monsters who pretend to be civilized?" Jake looked at him with sad eyes. "No, Commander. We are a species that chose civilization over our natural instincts. We could have conquered the galaxy long ago if we wanted to. Instead, we built machines to suppress our own power because we believe peace is better than dominance. But when threatened with extinction," Admiral Martinez added, "we will defend ourselves. And our methods of defense are not something any species wants to face." The chamber erupted in panicked voices. Some delegates demanded that humanity be destroyed immediately. Others wanted all humans to be tested for psychic abilities. A few suggested that Earth should be quarantined until better suppression methods could be developed. Jake raised his hand for silence. Somehow his gesture carried. more authority than all the shouting aliens combined. "The choice is yours," he said quietly. "Earth has no desire for conquest or empire. We will continue using our morality engines as long as we are allowed to live in peace. But if any species threatens our survival again—" He gestured toward the main display screen. It showed images of the empty Draconian ships still floating in Earth's solar system. "Remember the fate of the First Fleet," Jake concluded. "We tried to warn them. They chose not to listen." Susan closed her briefcase and stood up. "One more thing," she said. "The morality engines only suppress active psychic abilities. They do not eliminate our memories. Humans remember every kindness shown to us. We also remember every cruelty." She looked directly at Crextos. "Your brother's fleet died because they could not handle the guilt of their actions when that guilt was forced upon them. We did not kill them. Their own consciences did." The Galactic Council session ended in chaos. Emergency broadcasts went out across civilized space. The news that humanity was not the weakest species, but potentially the strongest, changed everything. Some species immediately began peace negotiations with Earth. Others recalled their fleets from anywhere near human space. A few brave civilizations offered to help humanity improve their suppression technology, but everyone remembered the lesson of the Draconian fleet. The empty ships floating around Earth became a permanent reminder visible to all who visited the system. Never mistake human restraint for human weakness. The humans had chosen to be peaceful, but they had not chosen to be helpless, and the galaxy would never forget the difference.